Thank you so much, Dr. Ruchi. And once again, after that fantastic introduction you've given me, I'm pretty scared. I hope that I match your expectations. So, welcome, team. Today we're going to have a very exciting program. This is based on firefighting. Now, I'm sure that many of you all have seen with the climate change that's been happening around the world. We've been having severe natural calamities, floods, earthquakes, and fires. Today, I'm going to be talking to you about fires and how drones specifically can be integrated into the system to help firefighters control the blaze, identify a blaze, and the follow-up required post the blaze. I'll be showing you a set of slides. We'll be going through them. We'll be discussing in detail how drones can be integrated into the firefighting system. And post that, I'll be coming back live online. I'll be discussing with you the problems involved with having drones integrated into the system and what we will need to do to mitigate them, and also to have all of you all present over here move in your own dynamic circles, come out of those silos, and start integrating with the groups that are dealing not only with fire, but with the police, national disaster relief, and all the others doing the work on the ground. So I presume we got most of y'all over here, so I'll start with the presentation, and then we will move on to question and answers. It's taking a bit of time. Does everybody have me online with the presentation? I have the presentation open.
It's there on your bottom right corner.
Just a second. We had the same problem a little earlier. Yes, we've got it. And does everyone have the screen on your online?
Yes, we have.
Okay. So without much further ado, let's start. As you know, unmanned aerial vehicles have become a very important tool in special forces operations. Not only are they useful for extinguishing forest fires, they are a great help in carrying out many of the tasks related to fire prevention, extinguishing, and recovery. There are different types of drones that we have, and I'm sure you all know we have the fixed wing drones, we have the rotary wing drones, those are the multi-rotors, and of course, there are other types of drones like LTAs, lighter than air aircraft. We're talking about the blimps. Now, out of these three, two of them are known to combat fires. By saying combat fires, I mean they can actively participate when the fire is occurring. The third one is called an aerostat. They are balloons that are filled with helium, and these unmanned aerial vehicles are tethered, as in there's a rope that connects them to the ground, or they are dynamically positioned. These dynamically positioned drones move through the sky very slowly, identifying hotspots or areas that can cause a forest fire, a potential fire hazard. Why I'm telling you this is each drone has its own purpose and its own space and place in firefighting. Now coming to multi-rotor drones. Multi-rotor drones can vary from small to larger sizes. And as we see as we go through these slides, they can perform the duties of identifying potential hazards, identifying a fire, identifying hotspots, and identifying the direction and amplitude, that is the intensity of the fire. We also have fixed wing drones. These fixed wing drones are much faster and can carry probable payloads. By payloads, I mean fire extinguishing substances that can be used to put out the fires. All these 3 points bring us to one conclusion. Drones in firefighting can not only ease the process, but can provide valuable information and can also assist you in recovery. I ask somebody now, are we on full screen perchance? Can anybody tell me?
No, Chief, we aren't on full screen. You need to do the slide.
Are we on full screen now?
Perfect.
Okay. As I mentioned, why drones for forest fires? Due to their rapid response capability and maneuverability, extended operations range, and improved personnel safety, these unmanned vehicles with vision-based systems, when we say vision-based systems, we are talking about cameras, not only in the visual range, but cameras that can see into the infrared spectrum and also into the electromagnetic spectrum. The infrared spectrum also can be called the thermal spectrum, and that is something of great interest for those who are looking out for firefighters, because not only does it identify a potential a fire, but it can also identify a potential fire hazard. It can show you where places along the ground are radiating higher temperatures, where the ground is dry and where the wood or the terrain, the flora, is not moist, which provides what is known as the ideal fuel source for a fire, being dry and tinder. Over the last decade, it has shown an increasingly strong demand for UAV-based forest fire detection systems, as they avoid many drawbacks of other firefighting systems, namely satellites and manned equipment and ground-based equipment. Satellites cannot give you the resolution that drones can give you. Drones can not only give you a direct downward view, but it can also give you an obtuse view, or as they say, an azimuth. They can give you a side view, giving you an idea as to what is going on inside the undergrowth. Manned aerial vehicles put the lives of humans at risk, and due to legislation cannot fly extremely low over these fires. Ground equipment is hampered due to the thick flora and fauna, the trees, and hence there's only that much they can move forward to quell the fires. Drones not only help to prevent these forest fires, but also to monitor them during the time that they are being extinguished. They even cooperate in the recovery of the affected area once the fire is extinguished. And additionally, they have great help in search for people and animals and valuable assets in this type of a situation. If I could explain this, what happens is a drone can be used not only for firefighting purposes. Aside from that, they can be used post fires for assessing the damage, checking if there are any other potential chances of a flare up, of a fire restarting. It also helps you search for people who have been either involved directly in the fire or indirectly. There may be people who are trekkers. There may be people who are in little villages that are surrounded by forests. There may be people like the forest rangers themselves. And there may be people who have gone in illegally, either for poaching, smuggling, illicit activities, or just for maybe something as simple as a picnic in the woods when an incident like this could occur. These drones can be used to help identify and extricate them in the cases of emergency. Aside from that, I will also tell you another point. Drones can be used for reforestation once the fires have been put out and deemed safe. More and more fire departments are using new technologies such as drones to improve their mission results. UAVs have an important role in this firefighting sector as they make a big difference. One, in terms of data that they produce, and two, a real-time situational awareness. The functions of these drones are perimeter surveillance, that is to see that there is nobody crossing into the danger zones. Search and rescue operations of people and animals. Animals' lives also matter. Also, remember, there are active workers who are there right in the middle of it trying to put out fires. Knowing where they are and knowing their actual status is invaluable. Also, transport of light material to inaccessible places. For example, walkie-talkies or communication methods or medical kits that could be required by the personnel on ground. And last, reforestation. As I mentioned, these drones, once the fires are out, or once the rains fall, you can add pellets. Those are small little round balls which contain seeds and nutrients which can be dropped by these drones to reforest the area. Now, coming to the surveillance stage, drones are not only used when the fire occurs, drones are used much before that. And being actively put into the surveillance side of things, they provide a real-time image to the forest rangers and to anybody else who is monitoring as to where are the dry areas and potential fire hazards. Now, there might not be a fire, but using algorithms, you can check and see in which direction a fire could spread because of the winds. You could also note in which direction the fire would spread because of brushwood, that is small trees and shrubs, or dry wood, For example, you'll know that a fire will not spread along a river. At the same time, a small little ravine where the wind speed picks up, you're sure to have the fire funneling through. So what these people do in this fire surveillance stage itself is they either burn that area in a controlled burn so that that area is starved and choked of fuel. So if a fire were to occur and reach that area, it will put itself out and burn out because it cannot cross because there's nothing else to burn. Next, they are essential to monitor the area and locate the sources that are close to the fire. What we mean by sources is where exactly is the fire occurring. When you have the exact dimension, I mean the latitude, longitude, and the area, you can assign the right emergency task force. If it is an area which can be reached by a fire truck, it is easier to send fire trucks which are filled with firefighting gel that can put off the fire compared to getting an aircraft ready to go over that, which may or may not hit the correct spot. Whereas there may be areas deep in the middle of the jungle which have caught fire where you will not be able to use fire trucks. In such cases, you can evaluate and decide this is the time to send in the big boys, that is big firefighting equipment, manned equipment, and to ably assist them. The big aircraft normally just blast a certain area with firefighting retardant material. But there could be smaller pockets of fires. That is where today you have smaller drones which can have more precise targeting. This is what I mean by it makes it easier to use them more quickly in an emergency case. During the fire extinguishing stage, drones allow having important information that helps to extinguish them, as I mentioned to you. Drones can see within the infrared spectrum thanks to the electronics on board. And thanks to other sensors, drones can not only identify the fires, it can tell you what temperature the fire is blazing at, what type of fire it is, what is the wind condition in that area, and what is the pressure in that area, which helps firefighters to analyze and evaluate how to deal with the situation. Some examples can be the ambient temperature or the wind direction, as I mentioned to you. They can also capture aerial images of the place in real time. So operations can be directed more accurately. What I mean by this is a normal aircraft, if it were flying aboard, would probably say there is a fire in sector A. By the time they return and report and you evaluate, the fire would probably have moved to sector B and probably have been extinguished in fire sector A. So you'd be wasting your time, resources, and equipment and energy in trying to reach sector A. Whereas a drone can maintain its position over the fire and tell you in real time what is the direction and the vector of the fire. That is the direction, intensity, and speed. Now we come to the recovery stage. UAVs analyze and determine which areas are suitable for replanting. Many a time, if you look, you just see green from above. But once there is a forest fire, you get to see certain areas of arid land. There may be rocks on which shrubs grew. And there are certain areas that might have been choked because of certain reasons. They begin to show that there is probably an area that is fertile land. These drones, using their cameras and sophisticated algorithms, help in deciding where to reforest and with what kinds of plants. Some areas require plants that have deeper roots to prevent soil erosion or avalanches or cascading, whereas some areas require plants to rapidly grow to take care of the animals that are there. And some areas require long-term growth of probably trees that could be used as timber or provide shade for other flora and fauna that would grow under its canopy. It's nice to note also that there are drones that integrate seed dispensing. As I mentioned to you, they drop pellets that contain seeds. It's not just one type, but a mixture of seeds specific for that particular region, which helps to speed up reforestation in difficult and inaccessible areas. Remember this, drones gather situational awareness in a relatively short time. A drone helps you decide within minutes the type and the amount of resources you need to send to the scene. A drone looking down at a fire can tell you whether it is a small fire, whether it is a big fire, whether it is a raging fire, or whether that fire can put itself out. Some drones are equipped with thermal sensors using infrared radiation to help first responders locate heat signatures of human beings or animals aside from fire hotspots. This not only helps the first responders to get to those animals or to the human beings, but to also guide them for their own safety and display to them in real time where the fires are most likely to spread, which can be relayed back to the control center and action taken. Even before your personnel arrive on the scene, commanders at the control center are able to make decisions using these images that are live streamed, preventing a lot of either loss or the boosted safety to human life and an ancillary safety to animals or flora and fauna by detecting the fire and being able to put them out. Coming back to the same point, drones protect your crew. Drones help monitor your crew, that is your human on the ground, to make sure you're sending them in the right direction. Not only are you sending them in the right direction, but you're sending them in the safest possible way. And also different paths to send backup forces or reinforcements. Drones enable fast mapping of incident responders as well as post-incident recovery. Drone solutions for forest fire response typically carry two different types of cameras. I'm sure that all of you all know that. One is the visual spectrum camera. The next is the thermal spectrum camera. The visual spectrum camera is like your normal cameras, high resolution, giving you a real-time image view of the different situations that are occurring and help to easily spot such things as your team or nearby equipment. How we do this is at times the teams, they carry specific reflectors which these cameras catch. So you can spot who is your teammate or rather your staff who are there on the ground. Thermal camera scouts for heat signatures of human beings or fires or hotspots. The reason why drones are so invaluable is also one of the reasons why drones are not actually favored right now. And I'll explain to you why. Drones fly lower than helicopters and aircraft, producing a more nuanced picture of the situation, as in you're getting a perfect, lovely view. And they can navigate in tight, dangerous spaces where no manned aircraft could possibly go without risking life. With thermal imaging capacity, they can locate hotspots, that is, areas of intense fire, and a fire scene within seconds, and even notice if people are trapped even in areas of thick smoke, because where the visual eye cannot identify them, the thermal eye or the thermal camera will. Now, looking at this, you say, wow, why would people not want drones if these are the benefits of the drones? The reason being that in firefighting being a relatively nascent industry, it is unregulated. Many people send out their drones without proper coordination or communication with manned aircraft, which are also in that area, which puts them at risk. And the moment they are put at risk, they cannot take off or fly until the area is cleared of the drones or until they are in positive contact with drones. Now, positive contact can only be established by visual, because currently most of the commercial drones available cannot identify themselves to aircraft either via radar or transponder. So you have to have somebody perpetually looking out for where these drones are. And that takes up valuable concentration on the side of these pilots. And hence, they do not prefer to have drones in that area. However, it is up to people like you who are listening to this and understand this to start making standard operations procedures wherever you are as to how to communicate with the aircraft and how to communicate with the people on the ground, letting them know where your drone is and what exactly it is doing. This will go a long way in giving the manned industry, manned aviation industry, the confidence to coexist and co-function along with drones. So it's up to you. There'll probably be an exercise building a manual on how you are going to communicate with manned aviation. Now, drones provide sharper details and greater information than aircraft in real time. It's a given fact. As we mentioned, during the fire extinguishing stage, drones disseminate important information that helps to extinguish these fires. In the recovery stage, as we mentioned, UAVs analyze and determine which areas are suitable for replanting. Post-fire assessment. Drones also play an important role after the fire has been put out. Remember that. During a fire, crew, pilot, low-flying drones capture 360-degree images of the destruction, whereas drones can give you an azimuth image of the destruction. That is, basically, you can even create a three-dimensional image. Now, how is this useful is, there may be people who are staying in the forest, residents forced out of their homes. This provides invaluable information on property damage to assess insurance claim in faster time, letting victims more quickly take steps to mitigate the damage. It also helps in identifying the population that remains of animals that have been affected by the fire. Smaller animals, birds, flocks of birds, bigger animals. It also helps in identifying whether they have enough food to survive. It might sound strange after a fire to introduce deer into the wetlands so that large carnivores can survive. But that's life. That's how you assist. Drones give you an accurate intelligence for informed decision making. Wildfires often involve large-scale operations. You must have seen what happened in Australia Many of your countries would have been affected by fires. And at times you need an incident commander who must take decisions on staff and resource deployment. We call that triage. There may be a place which has got a fire going, but the incident commander will decide that it is impossible to save that area. We will be wasting all our resources just trying to put off that area. Let us dig a trench so that the fire does not move from that area and use the resources and equipment that we have to fighting the fire in another zone. Drones are effective in providing this intelligence. They are an intelligence generator by capturing detailed data and information from the field and live stream it back to the command center. By having real-time aerial view, you can see exactly what is happening and you do not have to rely on second-hand information. You do not have to rely on aircraft which have seen an area, come back, give you the image to be processed. It's already 30 minutes late. You do not need to listen to somebody who is there nearby, who is guesstimating and saying that this is probably what is happening. All we can see is a wall of fire. You are getting a real-time aerial information. You know what is going on and exactly where. And you can also, using drones, monitor your men, your crew, and see their location as to whether you are sending them in the right direction or whether you need to withdraw and take them back. The system of drone applications when it comes to forest fires are divided into three components. The unmanned aerial vehicle itself, its objective is to acquire the data, which you'll all know by now. The second is the mobile control station, which is responsible for the tactical control of the aircraft. That is, sending the aircraft to certain zones or climbing to see a bigger picture or going to a certain area to get a micro view or a granular view of what is happening in that area. And you have the data processing center. Two parts to this data processing center. One is the strategic control where people use this information to make real-time decisions. And the second, which is collecting this data for post-fire analysis and higher level coordination with different departments. There's something also known as a forensic department, which could probably tell you how the fire started. Was it a man-made fire or sabotage? Or was it because of the conditions that were right to cause a fire in a dry forest? Or whether it was sunlight shining through lensing, which probably caught something. What does mission control do? Mission control is a set of services that orchestrate the entire operations of the UAV division. Its function is to link the flight plan, that is the path which is already pre-planned that the UAV will follow, the operation to be executed, and the payload. By payload, we mean either the camera or dropping equipment or parachutes with equipment that needs to reach the staff over there. Missions may dynamically change. Remember this. Fires are dynamic in nature, and hence the mission is also dynamic in nature. Therefore, critical updating of flight plans should be computed and not only just kept for yourself, but relayed to the people on the ground and relayed to the firefighters who are in the air. That is the manned aircraft, so that they have an awareness of where you are, at what altitude you are, and what exactly you are doing. Given that operational requirements change from mission to mission, additional or improved payloads will be added or deleted based on the services. Now you may be asking, what's the future ahead for drones in firefighting? Forest fire monitoring is an interesting civil application for UAVs and has a very large commercial market. Many divisions around the world are incorporating UAVs for aerial firefighting as an intelligence gathering vehicle. Integration of the UAV in the airspace is a bottleneck. I gave you a positive, I'm now telling you the negative. Why is it a bottleneck? Is because of mavericks. There are people who just fly the drones without informing people where they are, and that is a hindrance to manned aviation and also to the people on ground. You might ask, how could a drone that's flying at 400 feet be a hindrance to the people on ground? Number one, already confused and dazed by the fire, the sound of a drone overhead can cause animals to stampede into the direction of where you have got your people. Number two, drones are actually very unstable in thermatic conditions. Understand this. The fire that you see with your naked eye is not just the fire. The fire actually expands well above that, probably up to 300 feet above just the visual spectrum. Hot gases are still burning. Temperatures can probably reach 300 to 400 degrees Celsius, 400 feet above the fires. There are very strong thermals which drones will have to fight to keep themselves in a stable position. And pilots will realize that their batteries or their fuel is not lasting as long as they had calculated. The drones could probably crash in those areas. The next thing, the batteries are not designed to take such high temperatures. And if one of those batteries bursts, the entire drone catches fire. And those batteries burn with such intensity that by taking the drone over there, you are creating another fire that acts as a matchstick. However, integration of the drone in the airspace will overall fire extinguishing system will help overcome the main obstacles. Remember this, not all geographical scenarios are equivalent in countries. There are large areas in some countries which are just covered with forests, and it would be devastating, like the Amazon or what happened in Australia, where you cannot control it. Number two, there are areas that are probably built along a mountainside, which are very difficult to access. Here, drones again can provide you with that invaluable information in real time to help overcome these. Here are just a few images that you can see. I'm sorry, they are in black and white. This is effectively what is known as stereospectrography. You have two cameras which take slightly different images, and when both the images are matched together and interpolated, you can get an idea of depth. So as you can see, some are mountainous ranges, some are azimuth pictures, some are direct downward orthogonal, and some are showing you areas of intense heat. Now, moving away from all that scary thing that I just explained, showing you how the entire system works. At the ground level, the UAVs provide assistance to the ground level teams that perform post-fire and pre-fire damage assessment. As in, you can inform ground vehicles or foot soldiers who have ATVs. ATVs are all-terrain vehicles, to go and check a potential area. They could say that this area is dry, winds are blowing really bad. You might want to go and see that area and assess whether you need to chop down that, or whether you need to form a barrier over there, or whether to wet that area. These are performed by low altitude UAVs. Real fire alerts, They contact the ground level teams, whereas medium altitude UAVs will be holding above a larger area and maintaining observation. They can be used for a more permanent monitoring and data collection. Whereas the lower altitude drones can be moved from place to place to collect actual real-time data. I'll be moving to the next slide. This is probably what you'd see at a ground detection system. Remember that I mentioned to you the command control. There are different types of UAVs, as I told you. One which is at a medium altitude, another one which is at a lower altitude. And this is how the information exchange is obtained. Cameras relay the information to the ground central station. The ground central station processes it for fire detection, fire diagnosis, and what is the damage that has happened because of the fire, called fire prognosis. Unmanned aerial vehicles have become a very important tool in special forces operations. They are useful for extinguishing forest fires, and in the years to come will prove to be a valuable tool in saving not only the forests, but the men and machines that protect them. With that, I'd like to say thank you for going through this presentation with me very patiently. I shall now get back to our normal. I hope that was an interesting journey. As I mentioned to you, there are a number of problems that occur with drones in firefighting, and there are a number of benefits. Are they equal? No way. The benefits far outweigh all the small irritants or nuances that are there. And those can also be mitigated by people like you. All of you are present today. You all are the ones that can take this forward. Understand forest fires. Go on the net. Figure out what forest fighting people do. Understand how drones can assist firefighting. Not only for forests, but also for normal fires. And practically think, what are the problems that could occur if I were to fly a drone into an area where there is a forest fire? And then write down the points. Think of yourself as a pilot who is flying a real aircraft, and think of yourself as a pilot who is flying a drone. And then that is when you will understand the communication that will be required between those two. And once that is established, and with the ideas that you all provide, you will be making the industry a lot safer. You will be the ones taking this entire project forward by the intelligence that you apply. With that, I'd like to say thank you very much for patiently listening to me. If there are any questions, I'd definitely be open for that. Dr. Rishi, I presume somebody else is online. Definitely be happy to help you with that. When it comes to drones, people modify their commercial drones. For example, drones with wooden propellers or drones with nylon propellers will not be able to stand those temperatures. So probably people have propellers that are made with ABS, high temperature ABS, or with carbon fiber. Many of these drones also have shields, that is a deflective shield to protect the batteries, and also little tubes that go inward into the drone to direct part of the airflow that comes from the props to cool down the electronics. These drones also are equipped with locator beacons, as in visual locator beacons, sonic locator beacons, and radio locator beacons should they go down in a certain area. Next, you're asking about cameras. There are many cameras available. Some of them are the MicaSense, Red Edge. You have FLIR, that is FLIR, which gives you forward-looking infrared. You have thermal cameras. You have the GoPros. You have the Zenmuse, whole set made by DJI. A lot of professional cameras, but most cameras that are used on drones that are for forest fire are in the far infrared combined with a visual camera. Because the far infrared camera acts like your thermometer. I'm sure all of y'all are aware that we got a COVID situation, and many of y'all, when y'all enter into some place, you see that little gun that they aim at your head and check the temperature, right? These cameras provide you with a wide spectrum image of these temperatures. What was the next question, if I might ask? Okay, once again, I can just bring that back again to you. Manned aircrafts will be maneuvering in that area. And remember, wherever there are fires, there are going to be very bad updrafts and downdrafts and thermals. Aside from that, a lot of debris gets lifted into the air, reducing visibility. Now understand, a pilot is human. And when I am faced with such tense conditions, I'm looking out of my aircraft to monitor certain areas. I'm also looking at my instruments to keep my aircraft straight. There are times wherein we have visual blockouts. I'm not saying blackouts, blockouts, wherein there's smoke and haze, and where the aircraft either drops altitude because of these thermals or unintentionally lowers its altitude at that time. I'm not saying that you're definitely going to crash into a drone, but to have one more point to look after or one more point to look out in such a stressful situation, it just adds to the tension. And that is what is the negative point. The way of mitigating this negative point is to form a proper checklist and inform the manned aviation. I will be operating in this sector at this altitude and at this time, and I will be returning along this way. You can communicate with me on my mobile phone, and we will be monitoring what you are saying and talking to each other. That would give the pilots a lot more comfort, and will also they be happy to have you included into getting this real-time data.
Hello, Captain Regis. This is Amit here.
Very good evening, Amit. Tell me.
So, sir, actually, I was talking to a team who was fighting the forest fire that occurred in last year, probably in Australia. So, what they told is they preferred RC helis more than the multi-rotors and fixed wings.
That's
so,
correct.
my question was why? So, the biggest reason they said is RC helis have a less of electrical and more of mechanical parts. So you don't have to like think of the shielding and all. So you are leaving some weight and you can carry more payloads. And then I asked that why not the fixed wings? So fixed wings, first of all, cannot hover on an area.
That's correct.
And then Australia had allowed them to use ADBS on their systems.
Okay.
So I asked then why didn't you continue? So their major reason was that they would be clouding up the sky with a lot of drones with ADBS. So a manned aircraft won't be able to reach the region which is it is supposed to be reaching.
That's true, Amit. Actually, you're very right. You made two very valid points. one more point that I might add is also the fixed wing drones at low altitude, and especially with the thermals that are going on, the hot air rising makes the entire air unstable. At times you could have the drone go into a stall because it's a fixed wing. And since you do not have a real-time link with your drone, that few seconds could cause your drone to crash. The next thing is the drones could flip because of these thermals. And the third one is the drone rising uncontrollably in the swirl of the thermal.
And
Whereas
even the less dense air would cause a big issue there, because the density will play a big role there.
yes, because the drones drop in altitude over there and could possibly land in the trees or whatever it is. That's why we don't use multi-rotors, and we prefer to have the fixed wing drones at a higher altitude. These fixed wing drones are what manned aircrafts do not want. They are not too worried about your smaller helicopters, because your smaller helicopters will probably be operating at about 500 feet above the incident zone. The aircraft will probably be a little higher, so they're not too worried. They are worried about the ones which are above them and which could potentially cause a hazard.
Okay, sir, there is a question by Radhika Patel. What is dynamic positioning of drones?
Dynamic positioning of drones. Okay, you have drones which are positioned either using your GPS link from a satellite telling you where exactly you are. Okay, that can vary a little bit due to the signal that's coming in from space. This can be mitigated using accelerometers that tell you to hold your exact position. If you go 1 mm, push the drone back a little more. And the second method is using a real-time reference which is on the ground. Now imagine if I have an antenna with a beacon. Okay, let's say that it is a light. Now if my drone is over here and if I move away from the light intensity is going to get lesser, right? I'm talking about a radio wave. Just giving you light as an example. And if you move forward, it is going to become brighter. So you fix on a certain position, get the reading from this satellite, and fix on a position from this antenna, giving you what is known as your dynamic positioning. The aircraft will continue to hold its position even though the wind is pushing it away. The drone will counteract it and move and hold in one particular place. I hope that's answered your question.
Sir, another question is,
Sir, one question we have over here is, does high temperature cause a disturbance in the telemetry and the command system?
Yes, it does. As I explained to Dr. Ruchi, I completely forgot about that. Yes, at such high temperatures, there are times where it interferes with the radio waves because the radio waves can bend. Yes, you are a pilot, so you'd understand this. Radio waves bend also the same way light bends when it passes through areas of different density. This can cause a shift in the telemetry reading, and hence drones can lose contact and regain contact. It is very well noted phenomenon. Thanks for bringing that up. I nearly forgot about it. Thank you. Any other questions?
Sir, one more question we have from Ananta Datta is that
Yes.
the IR sensor can scan a thermal image, but the human presence is way outweighed with that of the fire. How do we differentiate?
Okay. Our human eyes can see probably 4 million colors. But look at it as probably, this is the page. Those 4 million colors are only over here. We have what is known as the ultraviolet spectrum and the electromagnetic spectrum and the infrared spectrum. Certain animals are designed to look into the infrared. God has given them that as a genetic gift so that they can sense either snakes or animals, so that they can sense prey or also notice if there is a major temperature difference. Okay? Now, our human eyes can only see that much. Now, if you take your finger and move your hand over a candle, over the flame, You might feel that there is nothing over the flame, but if you put your finger over there, you are definitely going to burn your finger. Because it is not visible to the human eye does not mean that it does not exist. There is a much hotter corona surrounding the flame that you are actually looking at. This can be identified by the drones. So there is a good reason why we use the human eye to probably check and see if there's a human being over there. If I was to see orange in the middle of the green, my human brain will think, that is not a color that I should be seeing in a forest. Is that a fire, or is that somebody wearing a safety suit? And if he is, he should not be there in that area. Whereas a full camera would just pick up the thermal images surrounding that area. It would probably be if the trees and that human being are of the same temperature, you just get plain gray. That's the reason why we use two cameras in conjunction with each other. We call it the onion overlay, whereas you put near infrared, far infrared, and visual spectrum and synthetic ultraviolet spectrum. So when you put these different papers together, one paper might have a certain amount of the spectrum, another might have a certain amount of the spectrum, and the next one might have a certain amount of the spectrum. So when you combine them together, you will be able to look through them and see something like this, which is not properly visible to your human eye. Any other questions?
Yes, so there's a question, how to figure out a safe distance for flying drones during forest fires or during firefighting?
Okay, the safe distance would be, from practical experience, try to go as high as possible. Thank you, Captain Dilip sir. Has to go as high as possible, but understand that you will be infringing into the area wherein normal aircraft are flying. So you have to find the actual distance. The actual distance can be identified by you going over the field and going lower and lower and lower until you find that you are at the critical zone. We call that as the hard base. The hard base is the altitude at which the temperatures beyond which the drone will not be able to fly, and below which you are going to have very bad thermals.
Okay, sir. Another question was, can the spraying be a solution in such a disaster like a firefighting or like a forest fire?
See, if we have a very large spraying drone, thank you, Ananta. It was my pleasure. If we have a large drone that can drop liquid or spraying, it will help a micro area. A micro area, because when forest fires move, they move in acres. And you need large human aircraft to come and carpet bomb them with water or with flame retardant. These drones that we use are a maximum of about 200 kilos. We're talking about medium altitude, big drones, 200 kilos. But the payload that they probably carry is 20 kilos. 20 kilos translates to 20 liters of water. 20 liters of water falling from 500 feet. You'll just feel a cool mist on your head for 3-4 seconds. That's it. You won't even have any.
Vaporize in the way also.
Pardon?
Like a substantial part of it would vaporize in the way also.
That's correct, exactly. Because as it comes down, it's cooling the temperature by absorbing the heat in that area. And that's why you'll just probably get a few droplets coming down. That's the science behind it.
Sir, I had seen fireballs being using where a explosive ball is dropped. So that would be a better solution than spraying, probably.
Actually, that is what I had mentioned earlier, wherein they drop certain things to start the fires to form a barrier. As I told you, if you are going through a valley or a ravine and there's forestation over there, first they send a bigger helicopter or a drone to wet the front of the ravine and to wet the rear of the ravine. And in the middle, they come with small drones probably carrying 10 kg payload. And these have what is known as incendiary pellets. They call them dragon's eggs. They basically contain potassium permanganate, glycerin, magnesium, and I'm not too sure, one more thing, nitric acid. So when this drops on the ground, it causes an intense heat, and that starts off a forest fire. And since both the areas are wet, only in that middle part it will burn out. So come the fire season, that area will just have green shoots, which are probably moist. So if a fire were to come up to that ravine, it will only come up to the mouth of the ravine and it won't be able to proceed forward because its fuel source has been choked.
So,
Any other questions?
Checking, sir, just a second. Okay, so there was a small like confusion among someone that how can the IR sensor differentiate between human and the tree in a similar scenario?
Okay,
Like body temperature and the temperature signatures may be same, but then how it will differentiate between them?
Before this, I'll just think ablative materials. Yes, certain ablative materials are used, but those cannot be carried by the drones. The reason why is the volume required of ablative material, that is either calcium carbide or calcium carbonate. You need bigger drones to carry it. Sorry. Now coming back again to your point. You're saying how does an IR sensor work? It works basically in the infrared spectrum. Now a tree, if you look at it, if it's on fire, it will probably be well over 200 degrees Celsius or 100 degrees Celsius. Whereas a human body would be detected as a lot much colder body at only 98.4 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay, so the human body will appear in blue, whereas the tree will appear in orange if it's on fire, or it will appear as black if it is cold and not yet on fire.
Okay, so most of the questions are answered. So I would request Ruchi ma'am to take over.
Thank you all. Anil, thank you so much.
Captain Job, hi.
That's correct, Ananta. Movement also helps. Sorry?
Yeah, thank you so much for the presentation. My name is Rohit Panchre. I had a small question with respect to the policy that our government is currently following with for drones. And do you think that hinders a possibility of drones being used for forest fire fighting? That was, yeah. So like you mentioned that we actually need to create SOPs for drone flight. So on the same lines, I wanted to understand if there's any, the policy that actually creates a hindrance for using drones. That was my question.
See, at the moment, most of the policies are a hindrance. However, please understand, in the last 1 year, the DGCA, MOCA, Airports Authority, Ministry of Civil Aviation, Airports Authority, and all the other, the ministries have noticed the importance of drones. And in the recent past, the Ministry of Civil Aviation, Airports Authority of India, and the Director General of Civil Aviation have all moved forward. There may be restrictions, but the moment you prove to them that you can reliably, responsibly, and respectfully control your drone in the active aviation ecospace for good, they are giving you exemptions. To get those exemptions, you need to prove to them that you have a system already in place. And that's why I'm telling all of you, develop, join together, collaborate, don't stay in silos. Join together, collaborate, formulate your own strategies, formulate the standard operations procedures that will be required. The moment the government realizes that you know what you're doing and you can prove to them that you are going to be responsible, believe me, they will open up and give you an exemption. Already exemptions were given for COVID. Already exemptions were given for locusts. Already certain exemptions have been given for certain strains. Many more exemptions will be given. I'm not saying that they will give you open-ended permission. Prove to them, they will give you an exemption. Once proven that that exemption has been well placed and that they can have confidence, then it will become a permission. Very good point, Rohit. Thank you so much for bringing that up.